Welcome to the Craftessa, everyone. If you are new, my name is Vanessa. On today's DIY video, I'm going to take a pack of wooden nutcrackers that I bought at Michael's, and I'm going to turn them into the Beatles. My son loves the Beatles and their music, so what better thing to do with these little guys than to turn them into the Fab Four. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook, where I post super quick and easy DIYs, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I post new videos every week. Now let's get on with today's craft. So I'm going to take the pack of the 5-piece wooden nutcrackers that I got at Michael's. They were $9.99, but I had a coupon, so it was way less than that. Obviously, I'm only going to need 4 of them. I'm going to put the other one to the side and do something else with him. So these are pretty well made. I like the construction of them. And what I want to do is I want to turn them into the Beatles when they were wearing their black suits. To me, that's what epitomizes the Beatles the best. So, and it's not that difficult because all you're going to need is a lot of black paint. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with painting them black, trying to mimic their suits. So let's begin with that part. So now I'm done painting their bodies or their suits, and they are drying. So I'm going to put them to the side right now. In the meantime, while they dry, I'm going to take this wooden piece from the Dollar Tree from the Crafters Square section. It's supposed to be some hanging decor piece of wood, but I'm going to use it as the base for my nutcrackers. I want to make a stage where I'm going to place them. So this is going to be easy to do. All I'm going to do is paint it black. Let's continue with that part. So I went online and I did some research as to what guitars each of the Beatles had. And I found them and I sized them down in Photoshop. So I found the guitars, I saved the images, and I calculated how big I would need them. I don't have the specific measurements for them. I basically eyeballed it in Photoshop and printed out the guitars. And I'm going to place them on a heavy-duty cardstock in order for them to be sturdy and stable. So let's continue with cutting them out. So now that I've finished cutting the pieces, they're not perfectly cut because I want to be able to glue them on the heavy cardstock before I do the final cutting. And I'm going to use regular Elmer's school glue to paste them down on the cardstock. And once they're a little bit dry, I'm going to start cutting. I didn't cut them fully because I want to make sure those edges are secure. And if I would have cut them, then the glue would have seeped out through the sides and it might have made a mess. So I cut them as close to the image as possible, glue them down, and then I'm going to do the final cut. So let's continue with that part. So after I finished gluing them with regular Elmer's glue in the cardstock, I decided that I was going to reinforce them with another piece of cardstock. So I'm going to take the spray glue and I'm going to adhere the cardstock that has the images on it to yet another piece of a heavy duty cardstock in order for them to be pretty sturdy when I cut them and when I adhere them to the final piece. This way they won't bend and they will last, just in case. So let's continue with that and we're going to begin to cut. So now that I cut the pieces, I'm going to leave them to dry a little bit better and to be reinforced. Now I'm going to take some regular white acrylic paint and I'm going to start painting the shirts on the nutcrackers because they were wearing white dress shirts. And now that the black paint is fully dry, now I'm going to go in with regular white acrylic paint and a very small brush to start painting their white shirts. So let's continue with this part. So now that the shirts are dry as well, I'm going to take a Sharpie and I'm going to make the outline for their hair. I felt that I needed to do an outline with Sharpie because I didn't think I was going to have a steady hand and just do a free hand paint on the hair. I guess during this era of the Beatles, they had that very shaggy haircut. So I'm going to try and mimic that as best as I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline each one of them with the hairstyles that they had. Then I'm going to go in with paint and fill it in. So let's continue with that. So now that I finished doing the outline for the hair, I'm going to take some black paint and I'm going to start filling in their hair or painting it in. Then I'm going to possibly add some brownish highlights depending on who had highlights or a lighter color hair. That'll be after this paint dries. So let's continue with painting in the hair. So I took the plank that I had painted and I added the wooden pieces from the Dollar Tree, the Jenga blocks, because I wanted the stage to be a little bit higher and not lay flat on whatever surface I place it on. The next thing that I'm going to do is, since I looked at so many images online of the Beatles in order to try and recreate this as best as possible, I'm going to create a stand for Ringo's drum set. In most of the images that I found, Ringo seemed to be elevated from the rest of the Beatles. So using the same Jenga blocks from the Dollar Tree, I'm going to build a riser for his drum set. And what I'm using is E6000 glue. And I'm going to glue them together to form the riser, and then I'm going to paint it black. So let's continue with that part. So now that I've finished with the riser, I'm just going to measure, basically eyeball where I'm going to place it. I need to leave enough room on the sides to fit the rest of the Beatles. So I'm going to place them back on the plank to see where I'm going to glue down the riser. So once I figure out where it is that I want to place them, I'm going to glue down the riser and paint it black. So let's do that part. So now the next part is to start to make their ties. They were wearing black suits with black ties. So I'm going to take the Crafter square felt roll and I just cut some small pieces of it. I did not do any measurements. I basically eyeballed it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold over the felt or double up those strips. And then in the middle, I'm going to do a small indentation to give the look of the knot of the tie. Now, these ties are not going to be the same size on all of them because I am not measuring, but I do like the way it's going to turn out. So I'm going to make 4 ties, hot glue them, and we'll be done with this part. So let's continue putting their ties on. So now that the stage is dry, I'm going to take some Mod Podge and some black glitter, and I'm going to give the stage a little bit of a sparkle because I like a little sparkle on all of my Christmas decorations. So let's continue with that. So now while the stage dries, I'm going to do the same thing again to the actual nutcrackers. I'm going to take Mod Podge and some glitter, and I'm going to give them a little sparkle because I do want them to shine. Their suits are completely black, and I think it might look a little too morbid, so I want it to have a little sparkle. So let's continue with that part. So while the glitter and the Mod Podge dry and cure, I'm going to start to build their microphones because obviously the Beatles need microphones in order to be able to be heard while they're singing. So I thought that the easiest way to do this was by taking barbecue skewers, some Q-tips, pennies, and aluminum foil. So I did a quick measurement, again, eyeballing it. I didn't take any exact measurements. I made sure that the microphones would be close enough to their faces to make it look realistic. So I'm going to cut the Q-tips a little lower than halfway down, and then I'm going to give it a little bend towards the top. To me, it seems that the Q-tip head has a similar shape to the microphones that they used. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of the aluminum foil and cover the tip of the Q-tip. I'm not going to use any hot glue to adhere it. I'm just going to wrap the aluminum foil onto the tip of the Q-tip, and then I'm going to attach the Q-tip to the barbecue skewer using black masking tape. I think this is the easiest way to do it and the way that it will look a little bit more realistic. And the pennies, you're wondering, well, they're going to be the microphone stand, which I am going to cover also in black masking tape. So let's continue and finish their microphones. So now the microphones are ready. I did not use the tape to cover the entire stick because I did one and I did not like the way that it looked. So what I did, I just wrapped the masking tape at the top to give it the effect of the microphone wire and the hook where you put in the microphone. And I'm going to paint the rest of the barbecue skewer with black paint. Now what I did with the pennies, I just placed them on top of the tape and I cut around it, and that's all I did to it. I did not use hot glue for the pennies. I just attached them to the tape itself, and since it's masking tape, it's going to stick pretty well. So now I'm going to attach the microphone to the stand, and it's very light, so the hot glue will work perfectly. I'm just going to hold it for a couple of seconds until it dries. And once it's completely dry, I'm going to paint the barbecue skewer. Let's continue with that part. So now that the stage is dry, it is time to finish assembling this entire piece. So what I did was I took popsicle sticks and I reinforced each of the pieces. For the guitars, I used toothpicks because it's much thinner. This way they'll be much sturdier. There'll be no chance that this is going to bend and that it will last much longer. So I used toothpicks for the guitars and popsicle sticks for the drum face. Now the next step, I'm just going to take a Sharpie and I'm going to draw in their eyes with the Sharpies. I'm not going to use paint because I don't trust that I will make a little perfect circle. So all I'm going to do is take a Sharpie, make some eyes, and these guys are going to be ready to be glued onto the stage. Let's finish this part. Now the next step is I'm going to take hot glue and I'm going to attach each of the instruments to each of the nutcrackers. And I'm going to glue it where they are holding something. So for example, this one is holding cymbals. I'm going to attach the guitar to those cymbals in order to hide the cymbals, because this is Paul McCartney, if I am correct by looking at that guitar. I'm not sure anymore, but I don't want whatever they are holding to be seen. So let's continue attaching all the instruments. to all of the Beatles. So now that I figured out the spacing and where I want everything to be, the final step is to start to hot glue them down. I place them on the stage just so I can see where it is that I wanted them to be and that I had the proper spacing. So I'm going to start with Ringo because he takes up the most space with his drums. Hot glue him down to his bass, and once we do that, we are done with this piece. So let's finish gluing them down, and this will be ready to be put on display. And now the Fab Four nutcrackers are complete. I really love the way that they turned out. And most importantly, my son absolutely loved it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell to get notified when I post new videos. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you all on my next DIY.